Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 3970 AN. Today's date is August 13th, 2026, and the title of the episode is SPR is gaining oil, Trump position Warsh. It's almost time to release the economic Kraken. Now, the people of this country, they're feeling it. We know what the Biden administration has done. They made inflation worse than ever. Every time you check out at the grocery store, every time the pump clicks past a number that used to fill the whole tank, dinner out that cost what a week of groceries used to, nobody has to tell you inflation is real. You're living it. Why? Because the Federal Reserve is responsible. So the question isn't whether you feel it, it's what you're going to do about it. Gold is an asset that holds its ground when the dollar loses value. And here's the part that matters. This alarm bell isn't about today or tomorrow. It's about 20 years from now. It's about making sure the money you work for still takes care of you and your family when you need it most. It's about preparing for the world we're heading into. That's where Noble Gold Investments comes in. They've helped everyday Americans protect their savings with physical gold and silver for over a decade, and they do it the honest way. Simple, transparent, no games. Call them at 877-646-5347. That's 877-646-5347. Or go to X22Gold.com. That is X22Gold.com, or just click the link in the description. Your wealth isn't going to protect itself. And one more thing, it's America's 250th, and Noble Gold celebrating it by sending you a free 10-ounce U.S. independent silver bar when you open a new qualified account. Just mention my name, and they'll take care of the rest. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum, they thought that they had Trump where they wanted him. Because when he went after Iran to decentralize the oil across the globe and remove the power of the deep state, the central bankers, they thought they would be able to destroy the U.S. economy. They thought they'd bring oil up to $200 per barrel. They thought that Trump would drain the strategic petroleum reserve. And there have been reports out there where everyone was saying that the strategic petroleum reserve is going lower and lower and lower. And it seems that those reports are not true, because Trump has been actually bringing in oil and producing oil. And actually, the strategic petroleum reserve is actually refilling, which is very, very interesting. All while Trump is decentralizing the oil out in Iran. I mean, really think about this for a second. You have to remember, Trump, from a long time ago, he planned this out. He knew what the deep state, the central bankers were going to try to do. He knew that they were going to try to bring down the economy. He knew that they were going to try to stop him every step of the way, because again, they don't want to give up control over the economic system. That is the actual control when you really think about it. If you have control of the creation of currency and you control everything a nation does, and you're independent, by the way, I'm putting up quotes here, you have control. This is not what our founding fathers wanted. Trump is ripping that control away from them, and he's continually ripping it away. Now, can he just shut it all down and start a whole new system? No, because the entire system would crash. He knows this. This is why he's taken this approach, pretty much with almost everything. This is why he's basically reversing and undoing everything that they put into place. Remember, everything that they put into place, talking about the deep state, the central bankers, was to benefit them and actually set the world up for where they wanted to bring the world into their new system with the central bank, digital currency, complete and utter control over the financial institutions. Trump now is shutting all this down. And if you notice, the economists, the financial pundits, the D's and the rest, the fake news, they've all been wrong about this. They've been wrong about inflation. They've been wrong about the oil prices. They've been wrong every step of the way because they are no longer in control. Trump is in control, and he's basically destroying their entire system. And yes, he's going to be destroying the trade deals that the deep state, the central bankers have put into place. And if you notice what's going on out in Canada, he's actually pushing Canada to actually make deals with other countries, because then it violates the USMCA, and Trump can say, you know what, we're basically discontinuing this. The Last Refuge put this out and said, here's the key thing that Canadians just don't understand. At the same time as President Trump is directing USTR Jamieson Greer to push Canada on terms for the USMCA or CUSMA, President Trump wants Canada to expand its trade partnership with other countries. Canada threatening to replacement free trade agreements with other countries is not a threat. And that's absolutely true. First of all, we don't need Canada. Canada needs the United States. Trump is forcing them to make trade deals with other countries, especially China, because this way Trump can then remove the USMCA because they will be in violation of that. And once again, you could see Canada does not have any leverage whatsoever. And it's being proven across the globe that all these nations who thought they had leverage, they really don't. Even China has no leverage. Remember, think about what the deep state, the central bankers have done. They've made the United States the consumer, consuming everything that the other countries either assemble or create. The consumers have the control. The consumers have the power. If the consumers do not consume, the other countries, they don't manufacture, they don't assemble, they don't export. We do not import from them. And Trump knew this going into all of this. And this is how he was able to use the tariffs against all these countries. This is why these countries had no ability in fighting back, even though the deep state, the financial pundits, the economists, the D's and the rest, saying, oh, yeah, China's not going to take this line down. Europe is not. Canada has leverage. They don't. None of them do. And it's now being proven over and over and over. Remember, Trump is restructuring the entire globalist trade system. That's what we're seeing right now. Is he still playing within the central bank system? Of course he is. Can he just all of a sudden bring us to the golden age? No. He has to build the new system. He needs to set it up. He needs to free the energy. He needs to make sure the manufacturers, the data centers, and the rest are built in this country. He needs to make sure the wages are going up, which means he has to remove the illegals. He has to get the American people back to work because illegals took those jobs, which means wages are going to go up. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. Stephen Moore put this out and said, the affordability comparison is clear. Under Biden, real wages fell nearly 4%. Under President Trump, real wages are up 1.2%. Americans are once again seeing real wage growth. And that's absolutely true. And yes, this is just going to get better and better as time goes on. And think about what Trump has done. He has decentralized the oil around the world. That's what's in process right now. And while we're out in Iran, battling the deep state, the central bankers, freeing the oil so we can be competitive on the world market where oil prices are going to go way, way down. And we know that midterm elections are coming and control of Congress is on the line. If there's one thing financial markets hate, it's uncertainty. And uncertainty is exactly what the next few months are going to bring. In 2024, taught us anything? It's that uncertainty breeds volatility. Between now and November could be one of the most volatile stretches for the stock market and the economy. You owe it to yourself to have a plan. And here's the good news. There's a simple way to protect what you've built, and that is gold. Physical gold and silver let you hedge the volatility. There's no better partner for it than Noble Gold Investments. For over a decade, Noble Gold has helped everyday Americans protect their wealth with precious metals. They make it simple, they make it easy, they make it safe. Call them at 877-646-5347. That is 877-646-5347. Or visit X22Gold.com to find out how to protect yourself, your wealth, and your family. Once again, that is X22Gold.com. Or click the link in the description. Election day is coming. Don't let it arrive without a plan. And here's the part I love. To celebrate America's 250th, just mention my name when you call Noble Gold, and they'll send you a free 10-ounce silver bar when you open up a new qualified account. Mention my name. That's all you got to do. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. There are those reporting that the Strategic Petroleum Reserve was being drained to support his mission out in Iran. It turns out that's not the case whatsoever. Latinx adjacent Dr. PhD said crude inventories in the U.S. surged 11.3 million barrels in a week Total commercial inventory surged 17 million barrels in 1 week. The glut is upon us. And when you look at this, you can see what's going on here. You can see oil right now is being added to the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Latinx continued. Lots of people are still struggling to understand the shock recovery glut phenomenon in commodities, but perhaps this chart shows it more clearly. U.S. crude inventories across all categories are approaching the levels they were in 2025. At this time, by early September, it will be there. So total U.S. crude oil stocks, including the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, rose 11.3 million barrels. Commercial crude inventories, excluding the SPR, the number of markets actually care about most, surged 17.4 million barrels to 424.4 million barrels. This was the largest weekly increase since January 2023. Analysts had expected a decline of roughly 1.4 to 1.7 million barrels. Instead, they got a huge build. This was a massive miss. So more oil is flowing into storage than is being refined, exported, or consumed. Drivers this week included a sharp rise in imports and a drop in exports. And when stocks rise this dramatically, it points to oversupply pressure. That is typically bearish for oil prices. More oil sitting in the tanks tends to push prices lower, all else equal. And it's being done with the strait closed and no Iran deal. Really think about this right now. Think about what is happening. Trump now is basically doing everything the deep state, the central bankers, do not want him to do. And he is in control over the oil market. And I do believe what we're going to see as time continues on here and more of these reports come out, you're going to see oil prices really start to sink. Because you have to remember, many of the people think that Trump was draining the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to almost nothing. They believed that he didn't have control over the Strait of Hormuz. They believed that Iran had the upper hand. But all of this is turning out to be fake, phony, and false, just like everything else. And you could see that soon what you're going to witness, and I think the world is going to witness, that oil is going to be set free. Oil prices are going to drop like we've never seen before, just like inflation is coming down. Now, remember, the financial pundits, the economists, and everyone else, they believed that inflation was going to skyrocket this year, out of control. And the Fed was going to raise rates multiple times, and it was going to be a complete and utter disaster. And it turns out none of this is happening. The Copisi letter on X put this out and said, July PPI inflation falls to 4.7%, below expectations of 4.9%. Core PPI inflation fell to 4.2%, in line with expectations of 4.2%. Month over month, PPI inflation was flat at 0, the first such reading since June 2025. The odds of rate hikes are declining further. Absolutely. James E. Thorne says, today's CPI discussion produced the usual quantity of noise and virtually no monetary analysis. Pundits parsed decimal points, recycled tariff anxieties, and treated every monthly price movement as though it were a revelation. Yet, scarcely anyone addressed the elementary issue. Why is the federal funds rate still above whatever it is today? If break-evens remain contained and the rate-sensitive parts of the economy, from housing and commercial real estate to durable goods, credit formation, and capital expenditure are already bearing the unmistakable effects of tight money, then maintaining a policy rate above neutral is not prudence. It is gratuitous restraint. This is not an exotic proposition. By definition, the policy setting at which monetary policy neither stimulates nor suppresses demand. A Fed fund rate above the rate it is right now is restrictive. It is intended to slow activity and pull inflation lower. The burden, therefore, is on those defending the present stance to identify the persistent excess demand, the de-anchoring of inflation expectations, or the credit excess that warrants deliberately holding policy in restrictive territory. They do not. Instead, one hears the familiar invocations of data dependence, as if that phrase relieves policymakers and their media chorus of the obligation to interpret the data coherently. It does not. With inflation expectations broadly disciplined and monetary transmission visibly concentrated in the sectors most exposed to interest rates, the sensible default is for the funds rate to sit at neutral, not above it. The case for continued restrictions has become little more than institutional inertia dressed up as vigilance. To be honest, it's pathetic. And at this point in time, Trump has positioned Warsh. He is no longer going to be using the Federal Reserve calculations that they've been using. That was basically to keep control over the system. Warsh is going to bring the Federal Reserve in line with the Treasury and with what Trump is doing right now. He is going to use what is really going on in the economy, what the real inflation is, and what's really happening, and he's going to be making decisions using that. Not, are the jobs numbers good? Is inflation going up or down? Maybe we need to make a decision on the rates. Because you have to remember, inflation is created by the central bank. They're never going to tell you, hey, by the way, this whole rate stuff is all BS. We're the ones who are creating inflation, because as soon as the corrupt people borrow the money, that money goes into circulation, it dilutes the currency, and that creates inflation. So yeah, this rate thing going up and down really doesn't do that much. This is why whatever they say is never going to be true, because Trump, he understands this. He knows exactly what's going on. He knows that, higher fuel prices, that's just temporary. A tariff where a manufacturer or company might increase the price a little bit because they don't want to take the hit, that's temporary. Because eventually what's going to happen as time goes on is that fuel prices are going to come down, just like they are right now. Eventually, as time goes on, those companies that think they have the leverage where they're not going to take the hit and they're going to pass the costs on to the people, well, the same company is going to be starting up here in the United States. They're going to produce the item a lot cheaper. And guess what's going to happen to those companies that think they have the leverage? They're going to have to reduce their prices. So you know what? That inflation that everyone's talking about disappears. It's not inflation. Inflation is the creation of currency put into circulation that dilutes the currency. That is the inflation. There's only one entity that creates that, the central bank. And yes, you have the corrupt people that basically borrow from the central bank and distribute it. But actually, it's the design of the central bank system. Trump knows this. This is why Warsh has been positioned. This is why he's looking at changing everything that the Fed looks at. And he's going to be going up against all the other Fed governors. This is why Trump is looking to remove Lisa Cook, because he needs the leverage within the Fed. Because for this plan to work, for us to move from the deep state central bank system into the new parallel economic system, you can't have the Fed fighting against what Trump wants to do. So he needs to bring the Fed in line with what he's doing. That is what Warsh is doing right now. He's restructuring the Fed as we speak. And he's going to be in line with the Treasury, with Scott Bessent. He's going to be in line with President Trump, which means once he's in line, of course, the fake news, the deep state players, the D's and the rest, they're all going to panic. They're all going to try to stop it. They're going to say this is not going to work. They're going to be on the other side, screaming and yelling on the top of their lungs, to convincing everyone that Trump is destroying the economy. But what's really happening is that the Fed, the Treasury, and Trump, they will be aligned right now to bring the economy to the next level. That is what everyone's going to witness. And at the same time, all this is happening, what are you going to see? You're going to see fuel prices come down. You're going to see taxes be removed. You're going to see interest rates drop. You're going to see money back into the people's pocket. You're going to see the GDP numbers increase because, again, when the manufacturers and the data centers and the rest are built, you're going to see production. You're going to see government shrink. All of this is going to happen pretty much almost at the same time. I'm not saying on the same day, same hour, same minute, but pretty much almost the same time period. And you're going to see the economy really start to turn around. Now, the deep state, the central bankers, the fake news, they're going to try to convince everyone that the economy is worse than ever. The economy is terrible. People can't afford things. But as people go to the store, as people go fill up their tanks, as people pay their electric bill, as people pay their gas bill, as people start to realize that, wait a minute, why do you keep telling us it's more expensive when I'm paying less and less every single day? And by the way, I just got a dividend check in the mail, and that is actually helping me out. Trump has removed a lot of the taxes right now, and he's continually removing the taxes. Fuel prices are way, way low, so I don't know what you're talking about. That's what people are going to see. And while all this is happening, Trump's parallel system that's going to compete with the old banking system, the central bankers, that is going to be coming online. This is why he's clearing the path for Bitcoin and crypto to become banks. This is why we already had Rand Paul, and Trump mentioned it twice now, about auditing Fort Knox. He's preparing the entire system. And when you look at Bitcoin, what do you see? More and more Bitcoin holders continue to rise, according to Grayscale. And when you look at the number of addresses, more and more Bitcoin addresses with non-zero balances, they are now rising, which is very, very interesting, which means more and more probably people are getting into Bitcoin. I do believe more and more people are going to be getting into gold and silver, because once you see the path and once you really see what's going on, and it won't take that much longer because we're approaching the midterms, we're moving into the second phase of the plan. I do believe Trump is going to become clear and clear on where all this is headed. And once people start to get that message, that's when people are going to react. Now, once again, this is going to drive gold prices up. It's going to drive Bitcoin up. It's going to drive pretty much everything up. And you're going to see this as time goes on. So oil prices are going to come down. Interest rates are going to come down. Jobs are going to go up. Wages are going to go up. Gold is going to go up. Silver is going to go up. Bitcoin's going to go up. And the deep state, the central bankers, the Ds, they're going to be panicking because they will lose the narrative completely. And as time goes on, people are going to feel better and better as time goes on. That's what people are going to feel. Because again, as everything improves and you get your buying power back and you have more money in your pocket, you're not paying as many taxes. Some of the states are removing property tax. Trump is going to be removing most likely capital gains tax on your houses or house. If you own more than one, he's going to start removing all of this. So it's going to really snowball. And basically what Trump is doing, he's releasing the economic Kraken. And the central bank will not be able to stop this whatsoever. They will not be able to shut it down. They will not be able to convince anyone. They won't be able to do a damn thing about it. The only thing they can do is try to bring their old system down. But again, even that is not going to work, because once you have the new system online, once you have the new system operating, it doesn't matter if they bring down their old system or try to bring down their old system. First of all, Trump is already putting countermeasures in place for any type of cyber attack or anything like that. So anything they try to do is going to fail. Yes, we might have maybe a temporary pause in the system, but I do believe that whatever the central bank deep state players try to do, it's not going to work, because Trump is basically in control of the economic system. Listen, everyone, thanks for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.